Some of you probably already saw it in the lobby, but I do have a copy. But how many of you have a copy of my book, The Map to Entrepreneurship, already? Okay. Well, if you do not, I do have them available in the lobby at the table. They're $15, and I would love for you to take one of those and get more information about entrepreneurship as a whole. It's called The Map to Entrepreneurship. To give you a full scope of what I believe are the most important aspects of entrepreneurial activity. Okay. The other thing I wanted to mention is each of you should have received a card. Looks like this. You get that? Okay. If you will fill that card out, what I will do is make sure that we send the notes of this presentation to you so you will have the information, because there will be a lot of information I'd like to cover. Thank you. And some of that information, you may not have a pen and paper and be able to jot all that down, so I want to make sure you get the actual notes. So if you'll fill this out and present it to the table in the lobby before you leave, okay? And then we'll make sure we get the information to you. All right, we ready to start?
Yes.
All right. The entrepreneur in you. First and foremost, let's define entrepreneurship. How many of you know what entrepreneurship really means? I believe you know what entrepreneurship really means. Okay, all right. It's kind of like happiness. Everybody has a different definition for it, and many of us still don't know what it really is. But entrepreneurship is a much broader term than most people realize. When I speak of entrepreneurship, I'm not simply talking about small business. Okay, small business is one component of what we call entrepreneurship. It's a much broader scope. And entrepreneurship is really designed to give you the right mindset to approach your activities in the business acumen community. You must be able to understand that it is a mindset more than it is anything else. That's why when I say the entrepreneur in you, I'm not talking about a specific activity or a specific career or job function. What I'm talking about is the ability to understand where you are, who you are, and how to relate that to something in the marketplace. That make sense?
Yes.
Okay. The entrepreneurial mindset is where we'll begin. When you're talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, I've heard many times what it takes to be an entrepreneur. Okay, I've read many books about what it takes to be an entrepreneur, what type of skill set, what's necessary for you to be an entrepreneur. And I believe in some of those materials in terms of determining you have to have passion, you have to have drive, you have to have the ability to work alone, you have to have the ability to become greater than you are. All those things are true, okay? But the real meat of what entrepreneurial mindset and entrepreneurial activity really comes down to is you have to be willing to invest something, okay? You're investing in order to create or to increase the value of something outside of yourself, okay? Now, that also means that in order to do that, you first have to invest in you, okay? You invest in you so that you are able to obtain the knowledge, the skills that are necessary to carry out the vision that you have inside of you to accomplish the very goal that you want to accomplish. I like to tell people to do this when you're thinking about different business objectives and business activities. Anytime I would advise a potential business owner or potential startup, the first thing I would tell them is this. First, determine where your passions lie, okay? Once you determine where your passions lie, then envision what the end result will be in terms of where you'd like to go and where you'd like to accomplish with regard to the vision that's inside of you. The approach you need to take when you're doing that is, first of all, determining who you are as an individual. But then there's another component to this, okay, that we'll really need to talk about. Everybody help me repeat after me and say, I know who I am.
I know who I am.
Okay. Keep that in the back of your mind, because what we're going to do today, we will always come back to knowing who you are, okay? That's where it begins. That's where it all starts. If you don't know who you are, guess what happens? You will run out, and you'll start something. You'll build something. You'll make something. You'll design something. You'll plan something. and you do all those activities, and then you'll come back to the table, something will fall apart, and you'll try to figure out, I don't know what happened. You know, I had this dream, I had this vision, I know God gave it to me, I know this is inside of me, I tried, and every time I try, I always stumble. And I try something else, that hasn't worked, I can't figure out what it is. What is it? What is it? Well, what it really is you have to take the time to know who you are, find the passions that you have inside of you, and then go several steps further. And we'll talk about those steps. But that's the beginning, okay? Another important thing to recognize is that though it starts within you and who you are, okay, it evolves. Because the business activities that are carried out are generally done by a separate entity outside of yourself that you create, okay? Or some people operate in a different capacity as a sole proprietor. But either way, we're talking about the structures. You have various business structures you can organize. But ultimately, you need to review that business structure as something separate outside of yourself, okay? Any accountant will tell you that if they're doing the books for you, they definitely want you to separate your personal financial activities from your business activities. Am I right? Okay. Well, they do that for a reason. They do that because the legal infrastructure in this country and in most other countries is designed that you will have the ability to set up a separate entity, a separate group of companies that can operate outside of your own individual efforts, okay? Who will assume all responsibility, take all action, and make all the objective decisions outside of your individual capacity. That helps us in many ways. One, it helps us because it isolates us generally from liability depending on what entity you choose. But it helps us in other ways because it helps us see that who we are individually also has to expand beyond our individual selves. It has to expand to that separate entity that we're talking about, that is created by you, that is designed by you, that is following your passion and designed for you to create and build. Are you with me? Okay. I have a blog, and I wrote a blog about the Entrepreneur in You several months ago, and I got a lot of comments back because most individuals, when they think of entrepreneurship, as I mentioned, think of small business. And like I said, it's a huge, huge component of entrepreneurship because small business, I don't know if you know this or not, but small business actually drives the economy in the U.S. Small business is actually the driving force of the economy. There are millions of small businesses in the United States, and these small businesses also do businesses abroad, believe it or not. And so when you're thinking about economic driving forces and things that get this market moving and get it going, you know, I believe part of the reason we were having so many issues with our economy is that you have to create ways in which that small business driving ingenuity can be innovative and continue to build and do greater things and have the resources to do that. So as long as we keep that mindset, okay, you understand that entrepreneurship is far, far beyond just the general economy. It is about you providing something to the marketplace that is needed and is demanded by the people in the market. Does that make sense? So that takes me back to the original statement I made to you. It has to either create value or increase value. Whatever it is that your dream and your activities, your functions, everything that you're doing to try to build and grow and build wealth and build opportunities for yourself, all of that has to tie back to your desire to create value or increase value in you and or the enterprise. Okay? The one of the CEOs, CEO of Whole Foods, has this what he calls conscious capitalism. Conscious capitalism, simply stated, is the ability to drive a business operation in an effective way that will hit the marketplace based on the needs of the market, but understanding that there are rules, there are regulations, there are things that you cannot do and should not do to promote greed, to promote unscrupulous activity, and the ability to operate in an orderly fashion. The reason that's important to you, because I'm assuming, and I'm making this assumption, that all of you are here are Christians, and all of you are leaders, okay? We have a responsibility as Christian leaders to be the driving force of the American economy. I do believe that. I believe that with all my heart. Because if you look, and you look over the last 5 years, and you can see all of the activities that either caused us economic turmoil, or caused businesses to fail, or caused any disruptive activity in our economy, what is the main factor that usually is associated with that? Greed. Thank you. Thank you. So that's why this is so important to me, and that's why it should be important to you. Because we want to get the principles that are necessary to build successful businesses so that we, as Christian leaders, can show the marketplace that these activities are not just for those who are seeking to get rich quick. This is for those individuals who have dream, have vision, and willing to do what it takes to accomplish those visions. I want to, let's get into some meat here, okay? When you're talking about the entrepreneurial mindset, and you're talking about, I'm talking about individual capacity, you have to know several things. One, like I said, in determining who you are, think about this. Less than 1%, there's research that shows less than 1% of all individuals in the population in the world have a true understanding of self-discovery. Most of us really, truly don't know who we are. Now we have an idea, and you know some things, you know some of the major characteristics that you possess, right? Okay, but there's so much more that we don't realize about ourselves. I mean, you have your own proclivities, you have your own likes and dislikes, you have your own functionality, you move differently, your demeanor is different than anyone else. You have all these specific characteristics that belong specifically to you. You know why? Because you're unique. God created you, you're the only one you. Remember that, you're the only one who are you. You can do this only because you're you. Okay? There's nobody else in the world that was created to do exactly what you were designed to do. Okay? And many times, and I know Bishop Jason likes to refer to this as finding your purpose. And discovering, really what is it, what are the gifts that God put inside of you that you need to be tapping into to accomplish the things that God put inside of you to accomplish. Okay? Well, the first step in that process is evaluating, okay, what are my passions? What are my desires? That's first. Then you determine, okay, what is my skill set? What is it now? And what can it be? And what will it be? There may be an opportunity for you to build an engineering firm. If you don't have an engineering degree, then you have to take a different approach with regard to accomplishing that task. Doesn't mean you can't accomplish it. It just means that you have to take the steps that are necessary to get there. Whether it be your educational background, or whether it be specific training techniques, whatever it takes to be whatever that is. But you have to know that that is your true calling and what you're designed to do. Just as you, as individuals, must know who you are, every business endeavor you pursue has to have its own existence. It must have its own identity. The business entities that you create, you could set up a sole proprietorship. You could say, I'm Darwin Bruce, okay? I want to set up a consulting firm to consult about accounting. Now, you don't want me to consult about accounting because I'm not an accountant. But I will tell you, if I wanted to do that, the first thing I would need to do is set up a separate entity apart from myself. And it would be in several different forms. It could be a sole proprietorship. Sole proprietorship is when you actually operate a business in your individual capacity. You don't set up a legal entity outside of yourself. You just operate and do, for example, you can do an assumed name. Like I could say, I'm Darwin Bruce, but I could set up the business and say, Bruce Accounting, okay? That's an assumed name for who I am. It's not really who I am, but it's who I'm calling myself for the purposes of performing my business operation. That sole proprietorship structure works well for certain individuals. It works well for those who are not worried about liability. Because ultimately, with a sole proprietorship, you are totally responsible for the business endeavors that you create. All of the responsibility falls back on you. If someone sues you, guess what? You're going to court, not the company. If you have an issue with a conflict issue with an individual, that conflict is coming directly to you. Now, there are other entities. You have the corporation. Two different forms of corporation. You have the C corporation and S corporation. C corporation is taxed at the corporate level. The S corporation has pass-through tax treatment, so that even though you have this separate entity that's operating and functioning in your behalf, the tax responsibility will fall back to you individually, which will generally decrease the tax liability that you are associated with. You also have the LLC, the limited liability company. The limited liability company is designed to basically be a hybrid between what we call a partnership and a corporation. It gives you the ability to partner with others, to set up a business venture, but at the same time, isolate your liability as the corporation does, so that you don't have the responsibility of incurring liabilities outside of yourself or toward liabilities of your own that are associated with the business itself. The partnership structure is basically two sole proprietorships or several sole proprietorships coming together with groups of people, whether it's one other person or 10 other people, to work collaboratively towards a business venture. And all of these different types of entity formations, they give you certain rights, restrictions, responsibilities. But at the end of the day, each one of those must have their own separate identity. And when I say identity, let's talk about that. As we talked about individually, we talked about that individually you have so many factors, characteristics, and factors that are associated with who you are individually, okay? More numerous than most of us can even think of, that we generally don't accomplish the whole self-discovery aspect because we can't think of everything that it makes us who we are. But with the corporate or in a business community, that business entity that you created, you have to see that entity the same way you see your individual capacity in terms of knowing what it is and who it is. First is that structure, that structure, organizational structure, which entity will you choose? That's part of who it is, okay? The other part of it is the plan, the business plan itself, putting a business plan together. And what is included in that plan? How many of you have done business plans before? All right, several. And how many of you think you're experts in business planning? Wait a minute, I don't see many hands. Okay, well, okay. Now, the thing about business planning is, I always tell individuals this. You know, they'll give you a template. You'll go to a bookstore and you'll find a book on business planning. There's tons of them. You know that, right? There's tons of books on business planning. But what generally happens is you'll take that template and you'll walk through the different elements and you'll be sitting there scratching your head trying to figure out, okay, now, how do I make my vision fit into this category? And how do I put, okay, now it's talking about marketing. Okay, well, all right, now how do I take this concept I have and put it here? So what you're doing is you're plugging in information to a systematic approach of how you evaluate doing business. That is backwards. Okay? Let me just tell you it's backwards. And the reason it's backwards is because it goes back to, like I told you, who you are is much broader than that structured piece of paper that's in front of you. Okay? So when I start a business planning process, you know what I do? The first thing I do is I have the idea. And I take those ideas and I get a blank sheet of paper. And I just start writing. I write as long as I can write about what it is I see, the vision I see for whatever the business activity is. How do I see that activity accomplishing the end goal? And what I will say this, I wanted to go back to one topic, and that is this. When you're talking about entrepreneurial activity, we're not just talking about profit driving or profit engine building businesses. Those of you who have nonprofit organizations, those of you who work with organizations who are not necessarily seeking to build a profit margin, but you just want to help the community, and you want to do something that's designed to help a particular aspect of the community, all of those are entrepreneurial activities. You know, all of this will apply to you just as it does the individual who's seeking to make profitable gain. Okay, keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. There's even a new term for it. They call it social entrepreneurship. for those individuals who want to do nonprofit work, who just want to help the community, I don't care what type of social aspect that you're trying to affix or associate yourself with. Anytime you are involved in going towards a venture that is going to do anything of value, remember, creating value, it still creates value, or increasing something of value, you always have to follow the same principles associated with entrepreneurial activity. Because what you'll find is that you still need the resources, you still need the plan, you still need the strategy, and you still need the end result that you're trying to accomplish. Am I right? So keep that in mind when you're doing entrepreneurial, when you're doing non-profit work, and anything that's not associated with profit-driven activities. But for those of you who are looking towards profit-driven activities, remember we're talking about value, creating or increasing value. Start of that process is knowing who you are, and then knowing who the business is. Say, I know who I am.
I know who I am.
The ability to walk through that process and understand that your business venture is organized in a certain fashion, but ultimately you have your mission statement. You design a mission statement that is tied to whatever you want to accomplish in the business, whatever it is. And don't limit yourself. Don't limit yourself to what you think you individually can accomplish. Think outside of yourself when you're thinking about entrepreneurial activity. You have to think beyond yourself, because this is something that exists outside of you. How do you think it multiplies? How do you think the stock market even exists? Do you ever think about that? You ever think about why do we have a stock market? And why does Wall Street exist? And why does the stock market exist in every country in the world? Well, because those individuals have recognized that to leverage the growth of whatever their ideas may be, they need for more resources, they need other individuals to invest in their idea, and they need to be able to do it on a broader scale. It's all about scaling. IBM, that's on the stock exchange, believe it or not, is in many ways not much different than a small business down the street. You know what they did differently? They scaled it differently. They took ideas, they took a service, they took an operation that they believed would work and help the marketplace, and they expanded it to a model to service a larger area, but also to receive investments from a larger group of people. That's the biggest difference. You're talking about the same principles on a larger scale. So, is it not possible for you, as an individual, to take the ideas you have, put them in a plan of action, get investors to support that plan of action, or get the resources yourself to build on that plan of action, and then scale it to a higher level over time, to the extent that you have a corporation that's either publicly held or able to be sold to a publicly held company, so that ultimately you get the end result of establishing a true brand identity all over the world? Is it not possible? You don't believe it's possible, do you? I can tell you. It's possible. It's possible. So let's do this. Okay. Let's walk through the main elements of the business plan. Okay? And the reason I want to do this is because I want you to think of when we're doing this, think of those elements in a very flexible order. This is in no particular order, so don't think of a sheet of paper that you have to fill in the blanks. I want to get you out of that mindset. Don't fill in the blanks, okay? What we're going to talk about is what's important to who you are and what this business is. Initially, mission statement and goals. Write out your mission statement and your goals of whatever it is. And remember, entrepreneurially, you may have more than one business idea. Most entrepreneurs have more than one business idea, okay? Most of them have several. You want to pick those that you feel have the most viability to sustain itself. And you take those ideas and you write down for each one. This process has to be done for each single idea, okay? This is not something where you don't pour all your ideas into one plan. You take all the ideas that you have and you incorporate them into different plans. And ultimately you may find that there are ways to have them collaborate with one another. But initially start, because remember, we're talking about building an identity, a business identity. That business has to have its own unique identity. Just as you as an individual have your unique qualities, that business has to do the same to create value the way you want it to create value. Okay? All right. Beyond mission statement and goals, we're talking about the company background. What is company background? Company background is nothing more than the history of what you've accomplished with that business operation to date. And if you're just starting it, your company background can be the history of what you've accomplished to start the process of getting that business on its way. Whether it's your educational background, whether it's your individual skill set, whatever it is, who are going to be involved in the business? Who are the individuals that are going to support you in your efforts? You have experts that are going to work with you. You have consultants that are going to work alongside you. All of those can be incorporated into the company background. The reason you want to incorporate that into the company background is because at the end of the day, and we didn't say this, but the ultimate purpose of this business plan, one, is to direct you and your efforts and what you want to accomplish with the business and get the end result you want to achieve. But the other thing you want to do is design something that if you put this in front of a bank or in front of investors, they will see the same vision that you have inside of you. And not only will they see it, they will see the opportunity to invest in it. And when I say they want to invest in it, what do they want to do? The reason that, why would anybody want to invest in anything? Why did anybody invest in the stock market? They want to see something that creates value or that will increase in value. Because ultimately it affects their return on their investment. Am I right? Okay, you as an entrepreneur have to think like an investor. You are an investor. The only real difference between being an individual investor in separate businesses and being an entrepreneur is that as an investor, as an entrepreneur, you actually have complete responsibility for the very thing that you're investing in. That's really the main difference. But you are investing your time, you're investing your energy, you're investing your knowledge, you're investing your resources in many cases. So think of entrepreneurial activity as an investor would think. All right, so we did mission statement and goals, company background and profile, products and services. What products and services will each of these business operations carry out? How will you put them to market? What are they? What's important? What does the market need? Does it really need another widget? Or does it need a widget that's only being sold in a remote location far, far away that no one else wants to serve? One of the unique characteristics of business operations is you will find there are many companies that duplicate some of the same branding ideas that others. Have you noticed that?
Yes.
And how they're able to sustain themselves, because economy teaches us that supply and demand, okay? If you have several people supplying the same resources, then guess what? The demand goes down. So how are these businesses able to maintain themselves? They are able to maintain themselves because they're unique. There's something about them that's unique. It may be the same widget, it may be made the same exact way. But because my widget may only serve a certain population, or my widget may be only produced in a certain manner, I have something unique about it that makes it different than all others. So when you're establishing the identity for your business, one of the main things you have to see is it has to be unique. Unique. Because what does unique do? It creates a demand. And what does demand do? It increases or creates value. Am I right? Are you with me? Yes. You really with me? Yes. All right, okay. All right, so we're talking about products and services and those things. The market. What market would you like to place these products and services within? Who needs them? Who needs it? Who needs the service? Who needs the product? I'll tell you, that's one of the most critical elements of business activity. And many times we have different strategies. You'll have marketing experts love to come up with marketing strategies. Okay, they'll come up with all types of ways to reach a demographic or a populace. But if you first determine what that demographic is and what populace you're trying to reach, you can sustain profitable margins much easier than you could if you just start going out and spreading out products and services to anyone and everybody who is in your range. Okay, think of it that way. You have to, if you want a specific response, then you need to target a specific audience. Okay, target a specific audience. And that means it could be based on demographics, it could be based on the jurisdictional region, it could be based on a lot of different factors that are associated with the market. But first and foremost, you have to know, again, who you are and who that business is and what it is able to service. That drives your ability to hit certain markets and certain demographics. And if you're scaling it, as we talked about earlier, and you're starting small, remember that. It's okay. It's okay to start small. That's what we all do. We start small. But ultimately, you want to get into a marketplace, or a particular market or industry, where you see the potential for growth, where you see new and innovative ideas coming out, or you presenting new and innovative ideas, because ultimately you want that innovation, that idea, to take hold and brand itself in an industry or a market. Okay? So the branding aspect is simply the identity of the thing you created, the very thing you created, and using that to accomplish the goal in the marketplace by helping the people in the marketplace that you're pursuing understand what it is and how it is you're accomplishing what it is. Does that make sense? All right, the other element of this plan is the personnel, establishing who are the individuals and the people who you're going to pull into the fray, who are going to help you accomplish these goals that you want to accomplish. That could be you. If you're starting out, it most likely is you. And you are CEO, your COO, your CFO, you're all of those things in one. All right? Okay. And that is fine. Trust me when I tell you it's fine. Then the reason why that's fine, I'll tell you, is because when you are in the capacity of being everything to that separate identity in the business, guess what ends up happening? As you grow, and if your idea takes hold and the market buys into the vision that you have for that business and that product or service, what ends up happening is you find yourself having to become an expert in areas that you normally would not have had any clue. So when you hire the experts and when you expand to a model where you can pull people in to help in those areas, you have the ability to look right over their shoulder and know what you're looking at. The worst position you want to be in is hire individuals to come in who will take over your business. Okay? This is your identity that you've placed inside of this business identity. You have to structure it in a way and operate it in a way to where you at least maintain that functional control to be able to carry out the very thing that you wanted to carry out. Otherwise, then you just need to go to those individuals and say, well, let me partner with you, and you put in some investment into this thing, and then that way we're both putting something in the game. Okay? But I want you to see that you have to really be more than just one person to accomplish these things, which is why you have to know who you are. You with me? Okay. From personnel, we go to operations. How does it operate? What is the business model? Let's talk about this a little bit. A business model is different than a business plan. How many know that? Yes. By show of hands. Okay. Yes. The business plan, what we're walking through right now, the basic premises of the elements of a business plan, is different than a business model in this respect. The business model is designed to show exactly how the business that you've created will structure itself and function in a flow to accomplish the end result. For example, if I say I'm in the business of selling widgets, I go back to widgets. They use the widgets a lot in law school, so I think I always go back to widgets. I don't know why. But okay, if a business plan model is based on widgets being sold, I first want to determine, okay, how am I going to produce the widget? What type of resources are needed to produce the widget? Okay, what kind of steel, what kind of metal, what am I going to use to do it? That's the first part of it. And then once I produce the widget, how many and how often am I going to produce them? And then what resources am I going to use to produce them? Am I going to produce them myself and manufacture them myself, then I'm going to manufacture them? Or am I going to hire a manufacturing company and I'm just going to retail them? and I'm just going to have someone manufacture these widgets, and once they manufacture them, they're going to sell them to me for a lower cost, and then I sell them out to the marketplace for a higher cost. Okay? Or am I going to take these widgets and I'm not going to touch them at all? I'm just going to say, okay, I'm not even in the widget business really. I'm going to just insure the widgets that are being produced by another company. They're going to produce the widgets. I want to make sure they're insured to get to point A to point B, and that's my business. And you can see how determining your business model, one aspect of doing widgets could turn into 20 different businesses based on the model of the business, what it's designed to do. Okay, the business model is based on the design. Is the design of the business? What is it really accomplishing for the marketplace itself? The business plan is done to tell you, once you have that model in place, the business plan tells you, okay, we know what we want to produce, how we want to produce it, and this is who we are as a business. How do we get there? What are the best ways to make it the most effective business operation, to make the most money, to make the most revenue possible? That's where the business plan really comes in. So before you even get to the place of doing a business plan, you have to understand your business model, which means you understand who you are. Are you an insurance company insuring widgets? Are you a widget maker or manufacturing widgets? Are you a retail shop that's selling widgets that somebody else produces? You have to know those things. Does it make sense? Okay. So, in dealing with operations, the key element of operations is understanding your business model. Once you have that business model in place, then ultimately you have to know how to market and advertise it. And marketing and advertising is a different function than determining what the market is for your product or service. So, let me differentiate the two. The market itself is determining, okay, who wants this? Where's the demand for this item I'm selling? Okay? Marketing and advertising is the strategy for determining how do I reach those people who want it or need it. Okay? That's how you differentiate between the two. And the reason that the strategic part is so important is because ultimately, if people don't know about the product or service you're selling, they don't have no way of supporting or investing in whatever it may be. So, we have mission statements, go back, mission statement and goals, the company background, products and services, the market, who wants it, personnel, who's going to help me do it. It may just be me. Operations, how is the business model structured so I can operate efficiently and accomplish the very task I want to create. Marketing, advertising, how do I reach that specific market audience? Sales and distribution, the logistics of getting the product or service to the individuals. Whether it's you with individual people, you have people who hire consultants to come in and actually provide a service, or whether it's a product that you're producing, how do you get it to market, which also ties back to your business model. And then finally, your financial information. Okay, what are my financial goals? Do I want this business to be a multi-million-dollar business? Is that really my goal? Or do I really want to just stay a small business shop and run a small business and have something I can pass down through the family for years and years to come? There's no right or wrong answer to either one of those. It doesn't matter what your end result goal becomes. What matters is that you have one. Okay? You have to have an idea of where you want to take this vision that's inside of you. And if it's not you to turn your small business into an IBM or an Apple, then that's okay. You take the ideas and the vision that you have and you cultivate it and scale it to the level that is where you see the most benefit for what you want to accomplish. Okay, you still with me? Yes. All right. I want to, those elements were the things that I walked through, the business plan elements. How you structure those within your planning process is up to you. Don't cookie cut it. Take your ideas, write them all out. And after you write out all your ideas you have for everything you want to accomplish and what the business identity may be, you take those elements and then you pour them into, make sure that these factors are considered in that process, if it makes sense. All right. Okay, I'm going to move a little faster. I wanted to make sure that we talked a little bit about managing the entrepreneur in you. Managing the entrepreneur in you. When, how many of you know who Warren Buffett is? Okay. Warren Buffett is famous for saying that he never invests in any business that he can't understand in 15 minutes. He said that. If he doesn't understand how the business makes money in 15 minutes, he doesn't invest in it. So the reason that's important for you is because when you're establishing the identity for these business entities that you're forming or putting together, keep that in mind. If you don't use some form of simplicity to understand how you're going to make money, how you're going to accomplish the results that investors would want to see, then you want to reevaluate that. You want to reevaluate it because if they can't understand it, then they don't see the potential return. If they don't see the potential return, then guess what? You haven't created value. And you haven't increased something in value over time. In the area of management, I always believe there are four major things you have to manage in an operation, in business operations. One, you have to manage people. Okay? Then you have to manage tangible assets, physical assets, things you see, you touch, you feel. Financial resources and data and information, in particular in this information age. The information age has transformed how we do business and how we do things worldwide. And so data and information I would put at the top of the list in terms of what is the most critical aspect of maintaining your business identity. Because the data that their business generates and the data that it collects, believe it or not, can sometimes have as much value as that idea itself. And I've seen that happen in some companies. So don't underestimate the importance of the data that you collect or that you build within the business operation. And managing that data. Managing people, tangible assets, the property you own, the financial aspects, managing your finances and managing your data. When there was an article in Inc. magazine several months ago that where they talked about how the economy has evolved and how the economy has changed, and that there are a select few companies that are really making it happen. They're really building the most jobs in the community. And they call those companies the gazelles. So on my blog, I wrote an article about it. I said, where are the gazelles? And when we talk about where are the gazelles, what are we speaking of? Who are we speaking of? The gazelles are those individuals who have figured out that if I can establish a brand, an identity, and I can have a plan based on a business model that works, then ultimately what I can do is I can create a platform that will bolster that business activity so that I know that at the end of the day, it's going to be the most effective product or service in the market. All those elements coming together creates this platform where you have the ability to be at the top of the heap of any particular industry or market you're within, and thereby becoming a gazelle. Now, doing that also involves the management of all those resources. And in managing those resources, you have to understand that it's not simple to take your idea, the plan, the model, a system, and mesh those things together. Peter Drucker was an expert in management. Has an institute in California. And I want to read to you a definition of strategic planning that he put forth. And when I finish, you're going to go, huh? But I'm reading it anyway. Strategic planning is the continuous process of making present risk-taking decisions systematically with the greatest knowledge of their futurity, organizing systematically the efforts needed to carry out these decisions and measuring the results of these decisions against the expectations through organized, systematic feedback. What does that mean? I told you were going to say, What that simply means is you have a plan or process in place to monitor the effectiveness of your activities. And you monitor it. So you monitor the results. So, in other words, it's great to plan, it's great to have the right business model. But if you're out and you're selling and you're doing this and you're creating business by product or service, and you are looking at the end result in terms of revenue creation, you're trying to create all this revenue, and all you're doing is running out chasing after revenue, guess what happens? If you don't take time to look back and say, okay, well, where did our revenue come from? Who really gave us the revenue? Who bought our products and service? And what did it really cost us to accomplish that? Did we really make a profit? And if we did this a different way, could it be more effective? Could we be more profitable? Are there ways in which we're doing things that are inaccurate or just impossible for us to accomplish the final goal that we're trying to achieve? All those questions that you have to ask yourself and the business itself in its own identity, you have to continue to do that on a consistent basis. You don't just do it. It's not a one-stop. It is the ability to take the information that continually comes in about your business and evaluating it and understanding it and acknowledging how that information can support you doing other things in determining, okay, I may not need to go in that market, or I might need to sell a different hybrid of this product, or I might need to go a different direction. But you won't know that if you're not monitoring the true response level at each level of the operation. That's basically what Peter Drucker was talking about. If you can understand what the key elements of your operation are and understand why they're happening the way they're happening, that's systematic and strategic planning, so that you can ultimately make changes that are necessary to really reach the goal of accomplishing a profit. Now, as entrepreneurs, you also know that there's always this fear or trepidation about being entrepreneurial. Am I right?
Yes.
We're always worried about whether or not it's going to succeed, whether it will fail. Do we have what it takes? Do we have the knowledge? Do we have the background? Do we have the right support staff? Do we have the right people in place? We tend to do this quite often. But I want to tell you something. If you can take the elements of knowing the entrepreneurial mindset, having the entrepreneurial mindset, developing the plan of action, managing the risk and opportunities effectively, and then believing that it can be done, you can get it done. And as Christians, you really should know you can get it done because you have faith. Am I right? If the faith-based community can't understand the ability to overcome obstacles and go past fear and anxiety to accomplish what you know was put inside of you to accomplish, then who else can do it? And what you'll find is those individuals who have accomplished great things on the revenue side of doing business, who have fallen, like we talked about earlier, follow unscrupulous business practices and all these following greed. Think about it. If they can accomplish so much, though they fall, why can we not accomplish so much and not falter? Am I right? All right. I really believe, I'm so passionate about it, I really believe that the tools are available for us to really be successful entrepreneurially and in business. Everybody say, I know who I am.
I know who I am.
Say it again, I know who I am.
I know who I am.
Say that about yourself. Say that about your business. Say that about every idea that you have inside of you. Okay? You have to know who you are. You take those principles of knowing who you are with the entrepreneurial mindset, knowing that, see, entrepreneurial mindset, you know what entrepreneurial mindset does? Entrepreneurial mindset says they don't see failure. They see opportunity, okay? I personally have known several companies that have filed for bankruptcy, and 5 years later, they're multi-million-dollar companies. Okay, you don't let failure, and the perceived failure, if people say, well, bankruptcy failure, I'm gonna tell you something. Perceived failure in many cases, is opportunity awaiting. Okay? Don't ever give up on your dream. Don't ever let anyone tell you that it's not possible, and don't let anyone tell you that there's not a way to accomplish what you want to accomplish. Believe it? Believe it? All right, I know who I am. I know who I am. I want to, there's a lot more information, like I said, if you fill out the card that we gave you, I will make sure that the notes from this information and other information that I may not have covered will come to you. And you'll leave that at the table in the lobby. But I wanted to stop here because I wanted to give opportunity for people who have questions. They said we allow for questions today, so I want to make sure you have the opportunity to ask any specific questions you may have, general questions you may have. And they're going to come around with the mics, I think.
If I could have the people on this side to stand in this aisle for me. People on this side stand in this aisle over here for me. We're going to see how many people we have in line, and we'll limit our questions based on the number of people in line, based on the time of 2 to 3 minutes, because we'll give you an opportunity. The session ends at 12. Give you an opportunity to go take a break for our 1:30 session. If you're coming back in this room for Pastor Hill's session, it will be in this room, and as you can see, the room will fill in pretty fast. If you have other sessions that's further over, as you know, this is the furthest session over. So it takes you a long time to get back over to the food courts and all that, so we want to give you an opportunity to do that. So we'll start right here.
Good morning.
Oh, good morning.
We have a 501c3, but during the recessional times, the funding ran down, and we invented a for-profit. But we still want to help the community. So what advice would you give for those who want to still keep the 501 to help the community?
Oh, okay. Well, but you are going towards a for-profit venture as well.
As well, yes.
Okay. That's good. That's actually better. I'll tell you why. The for-profit venture can actually help you see some of the efforts at the nonprofit level. And I don't know if the nonprofit is tied to the same type of ideas you have for your for-profit or not, the same type of activities. But if it is closely related to the industry and the functions you're doing as a nonprofit, you can sometimes couple the activities by carrying out ventures on a project-by-project basis.